Hey guys, Frank Gallo, your favorite contract corporate pilot, coming to you today again with another very interesting and unfortunately sad video about another horrible plane crash that took place back on November 12th, 2001, just 1 month after the 9/11 attacks that took over 3,000 lives. Now, the question is, was this terrorism also? Was it a catastrophic malfunction? Was it pilot error? We're going to find out. But before we do, I need you to go over there and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. It'll remind you each and every time there's a new video. And please leave a respectful comment so that I know what you're thinking and what you'd like to see more of. Let's go to the video now and look at just what happened on that day.
American Airlines Flight 587 was a scheduled international passenger flight from New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport, JFK, to Las Americas International Airport, SDQ, in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. The aircraft, an Airbus A300-605R, registration N14053, carried 251 passengers and 9 crew members. All 260 people aboard were killed, along with 5 people on the ground, when the aircraft crashed into the Bell Harbor neighborhood of Queens, New York. The accident became the second deadliest aviation accident in U.S. history and the deadliest involving an Airbus A300. It occurred only 61 days after the September 11th attacks, leading to immediate public fears of another terrorist attack. Within days, investigators ruled out sabotage and focused on a catastrophic in-flight structural failure. Flight Crew Captain Edward Ed States, age 42. Total flight time, approximately 8,050 hours. A300 flight time, about 1,700 hours. Position, pilot monitoring, PM. Captain States was highly experienced and had flown for American Airlines since 1987. He was serving as the monitoring pilot because the first officer was the designated pilot flying for this leg. Training. Captain States had completed all required FAA and company recurrent training. His most recent simulator proficiency check had been completed approximately 5 months before the accident. No deficiencies were found in his training or flight record. First Officer Sten Molen, age 34. Total flight time, approximately 4,400 hours. A300 flight time, approximately 1,835 hours. Position, pilot flying, PF. Molen had previously flown as a captain for a regional airline before joining American Airlines. Although younger and less experienced overall than Captain States, he had considerable experience specifically in the Airbus A300. Recent training. Molen had completed FAA-required recurrent simulator training, American Airlines Advanced Aircraft Maneuvering Program, AAMP, wake turbulence recovery exercises, upset recovery training. His last recurrent simulator training had occurred only weeks before the accident. Importantly, investigators determined there was nothing deficient about his stick and rudder skills. Instead, they concluded that his simulator training unintentionally conditioned him to respond far too aggressively to wake turbulence. The aircraft had accumulated roughly 37,550 flight hours and over 14,000 flight cycles. Maintenance records showed no unresolved mechanical problems. The airplane was structurally sound before departure. Departure. Flight 587 departed runway 31L at 9:14:29 Eastern Standard Time. Weather conditions were favorable. Good visibility. Light winds. No thunderstorms. No icing. No mechanical abnormalities. Approximately 2 minutes earlier, Japan Airlines Flight 47, a Boeing 747-400, had departed from the same runway. FAA spacing requirements were fully met. The aircraft were separated by approximately 4.3 nautical miles, approximately 3,800 feet vertically. No procedural violations occurred. Wake turbulence. Large aircraft produce wingtip vortices. A Boeing 747 generates some of the strongest wake turbulence of any commercial aircraft. These vortices descend, move outward slowly, dissipate. By the time Flight 587 reached them, the vortices had weakened considerably. The NTSB later concluded the turbulence was within the certification envelope of the Airbus. In other words, pilots were expected simply to ride through the disturbance with minor control inputs. First encounter. At approximately 1,700 feet MSL, Flight 587 encountered the first wake vortex. The aircraft rolled approximately 8 degrees. This amount of roll was not dangerous. Many airline crews experience stronger turbulence routinely. Excessive rudder inputs. Instead of allowing the aircraft to stabilize using primarily ailerons, First Officer Molin began making rapid alternating rudder pedal movements. The rudder moved left, right, within only a few seconds. These were full or nearly full pedal deflections. Each reversal occurred before aerodynamic loads from the previous movement had dissipated. The resulting side loads accumulated rapidly. Airbus rudder design. One of the most important findings involved the A300's rudder system. Unlike many earlier transport aircraft, pedal travel remained nearly constant at all airspeeds. Hydraulic power remained extremely high. Pilots could command very large rudder deflections, even at high speed. Although a limiter reduced maximum rudder travel as speed increased, full pedal force still generated the maximum available rudder deflection for that speed. This made it easier for a pilot to generate very high structural loads. Aircraft-pilot coupling. The investigation highlighted a phenomenon known as aircraft-pilot coupling. As the aircraft yawed, the pilot instinctively pushed the opposite rudder. The airplane responded immediately. The pilot then reversed inputs again. Each reversal increased structural loading. The alternating side loads became much greater than a single rudder movement would have produced. Structural failure. At approximately 250 knots, the side loads exceeded the vertical stabilizer's certified ultimate strength. The composite attachment lugs fractured. The entire vertical stabilizer, including the rudder, separated from the aircraft. Investigators later recovered the stabilizer almost intact from Jamaica Bay. The fracture surfaces clearly showed overload rather than fatigue. No manufacturing defect was found. Why the tail failed. Many people initially believed the tail should never have separated. The NTSB disagreed. Aircraft certification requires structures to withstand loads up to a specified ultimate load. Flight 587 exceeded those limits. The stabilizer experienced loads beyond what certification required it to survive. However, investigators also concluded Airbus had underestimated how easily pilots could create those loads through rapid alternating rudder inputs. Thus, the airplane technically met certification requirements, but the certification process itself had not adequately considered realistic pilot behavior. Loss of control. Once the vertical stabilizer departed, directional stability disappeared almost instantly. The aircraft entered uncontrolled yaw. Aerodynamic loads became extreme. Both engines then separated because the wing structure flexed violently. Without a vertical tail, recovery became impossible. Impact. The aircraft descended almost vertically. Ground speed exceeded 300 miles per hour. It struck Bell Harbor approximately 2 minutes after takeoff. The impact destroyed numerous homes. 5 residents on the ground also died. Cockpit voice recorder. The CVR revealed no panic or indications of terrorism. The pilots discussed wake turbulence, aircraft handling attempts to recover. The captain recognized the unusual aircraft response almost immediately, but had no opportunity to intervene before structural failure occurred. The entire sequence from first wake encounter to tail separation lasted only a few seconds.
You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Hang on to it. Hang on to it. Open up, please.
Training issues. One of the investigation's strongest criticisms focused on American Airlines' Advanced Aircraft Maneuvering Program. The simulator exercises repeatedly taught pilots to make aggressive rudder inputs during upset recovery. Some scenarios implied, use as much rudder as necessary. Several instructors reinforced this concept. Although well-intended, these scenarios unintentionally conditioned pilots to believe aggressive rudder use was appropriate for wake turbulence. The NTSB concluded this training significantly influenced First Officer Molin's response. The investigation also criticized Airbus. Pilots were not adequately informed that alternating full rudder inputs were far more dangerous than one sustained input. The aircraft could exceed structural limits without reaching full rudder travel. Rapid reversals multiplied structural loads dramatically. Neither the flight manual nor pilot training emphasized these hazards. The National Transportation Safety Board determined the probable cause of the accident was the in-flight separation of the vertical stabilizer as a result of loads beyond the ultimate design load that were created by the first officer's unnecessary and excessive rudder pedal inputs. Contributing factors included characteristics of the Airbus A300-600 rudder system, elements of American Airlines' Advanced Aircraft Maneuvering Program that encouraged aggressive rudder use, and the lack of sufficient emphasis by Airbus and the FAA on the structural hazards associated with rapid alternating rudder inputs. Lasting impact. Flight 587 fundamentally changed airline training worldwide. Following the accident, airlines revised upset recovery programs to discourage aggressive rudder use except when absolutely necessary. Airbus updated pilot guidance to better explain rudder limitations and the risks of alternating pedal inputs. The FAA and international regulators revised training philosophies, emphasizing that roll disturbances should primarily be corrected with ailerons and that rudder should be used sparingly at high speed. The accident is now widely regarded as a case in which human factors, training philosophy, and aircraft design characteristics combine to produce a catastrophic outcome.
Well, guys, I hope you found that video interesting, and I hope you learned something from it. I certainly did by presenting it to you. It's a very sad situation. The only good thing that comes from a tragedy like that is that we learn, our training techniques change, and we become better at what we do. But the question is, was this pilot error? Now, he was trained to do exactly what he did. The instructors encouraged the students to do exactly that in wake turbulence, to make those rudder movements. Now, is he at fault? Only in the sense that his feet were on the rudder pedals. But he did exactly what he was trained to do. So I think it's more of a training error than a pilot error. I mean, we could be dealing with semantics here, but truth be told, the poor guy, his legacy needs to be protected by the truth. And the truth is, he was taught to do that. And it's not something that he just pulled out of a hat. He followed the procedures to the T, and it led to the tragic accident. So let me know what you think in the comments section. I'd really like to hear your opinion on what happened here and whether or not the pilot was responsible through an error or through an error in his training from the company. Now, before I go, I need you to please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, leave a respectful comment, positive or negative. I need to know what you're thinking. Now, I'm trying to get to my short-term goal of 5,000 subscribers. We're slowly getting there with your help, and I really appreciate it. I thank you for that. I need you to please continue to move forward by sharing my videos and telling your friends to subscribe. It's free and great information. I put a lot of work into these videos so that I can present you with a good understanding of what's going on. And finally, please, if you're thinking of getting a pet, as I always ask you, please don't buy, don't go to a breeder, rescue, adopt. There are so many beautiful, loving animals sitting in shelters, sometimes for years at a time, just waiting for their forever home. And I know from personal experience that they know that you saved them, and they will show you a love like you have never, ever felt before. Please do that, okay? Your favorite contract corporate pilot, Frank Gallo, signing off.